One of the biggest questions I get asked as a Game of Thrones YouTuber is who do I think will sit the Iron Throne come the end of Game of Thrones Season 8 and who will win the game in the novels. My go-to answer is always, I don't honestly think, for the show at least, the Iron Throne will matter. It will be destroyed, and who rules the kingdom will almost be a second thought put off on the back burner. The main immediate thought to all of the surviving characters will be, what do we do next? Not who's gonna lead us. But if this were the case, then that would mean the entire pursuit of the Iron Throne, or the Game of Thrones, if you will, is meaningless. In this video, I want to discuss how Jon Snow may be the best leader that Westeros has to offer, and it might have just been in front of our faces this entire time. Before we get started, and because you guys are so freaking amazing, I'm having a giveaway for a $100 Amazon gift card, the winner of which will be selected on March 13th. All you have to do to enter this contest is make sure you slap a like on this video, go ahead and leave a comment down below, then go ahead and subscribe and turn your notifications on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this, and I know you all know what's coming. Long nights. Also, check out the gleam.io pinned in the top comment of this video, as well as linked in the description to enter all the different bonus ways. Prior to Season 5, if you would ask me who the most important Game of Thrones character is on the TV show at least, I probably would have told you Tyrion. Tyrion is in almost every single episode, and he's also got one of the most insanely important storylines. He's been all over the world, and he's traveled to a lot of places. Now, I still feel this way, but the reason why I said prior to Season 5 is because in Game of Thrones Season 6 and Season 7, Tyrion almost seems like a secondary character. We all still love him, and he still has some of the best lines. It just seems like his plot and his motivation is no longer important. Ever since he killed Tywin and left the Lannister house in disarray and crossed the Narrow Sea, we haven't really felt that much need for him, or screen time rather, with him. I don't really know how else to put it, but I just haven't felt the same importance when I see Tyrion on screen in these past few seasons as I did in Season 5. And I think the main reason of this is because Tyrion has the most POV chapters in the novels, and the way Dan and Dave were writing his story to play out on Game of Thrones was going to be of way more significance, but since we haven't gotten the Winds of Winter, they kind of had to go with what they know. They know that Jon Snow is a main character and will play a major role in the endgame of the TV show as well as the novels. The same can be said with Daenerys. So I think most of the storylines and the plot lines that made Tyrion's character seem important has been shifted more so onto Jon Snow and Daenerys, because we do know that they will have the most they have the most power as of right now in the show, arguably, and they also are of the most importance. They are the children of prophecy. So I think what may have happened is that Dan and Dave originally had a bigger hand in mind for Tyrion to play in the endgame. They just haven't been supplied with enough source material to do so. They do, however, know how the exact Game of Thrones will end. So with that being said, Jon Snow, last we hear in the novels, has just been stabbed by a group of his companions, and he dies. The last word that he says is ghost. Because of this, a lot of people think that he actually worked into his direwolf, Ghost, which happened to be nearby when Jon Snow finally bit the dust. Now, I honestly would not be surprised, and with George's track record, if Jon Snow doesn't come back. Now, I know there's like a 0 to 0% chance that that's going to happen, but I'm just saying this is a possibility. What could end up happening if George does decide to keep Jon Snow dead is he could have other characters who are still alive in his books or who have never even made an appearance on the TV show fulfill that role. For instance, we do know that Tyrion is on his way to meet with Daenerys right now, and who's to say that those two don't end up together in the novels? Let's debate down below in the comment section. But let's jump off that track real quick, and let's get on to the main point of this theory, which is Jon Snow has met the most monarchs, and I honestly think he has the best chance, or is the most experienced person to rule Westeros. Now, before I go into discussing how awesome and how fit of a ruler Jon Snow will be to rule all of Westeros, I need to backtrack for a second here and say that I honestly think, and this is a little bit biased, but I think that Daenerys should ultimately rule the Iron Throne. It is her birthright. I'm a huge fan of Emilia Clarke, and Daenerys has, well, dragons. But for this video's sake, we're going to discuss the idea of, Jon Snow ruling. So anyway, some of the most amazing things that Jon Snow has done has to deal with the people. He is literally a man of the people. If you remember, Jon Snow grows up his entire life thinking that he's a bastard and that he doesn't really hold any kind of claim. He grew up never really feeling 100% a member of the Starks. Obviously, Ned treated him really fair, and Catelyn was just a complete and total towards him, but Jon Snow grew up never really feeling 100% a whole person. He didn't feel in place living with the Starks, and he always knew that there was just something, different about him that made him not as good as Robb and a lot of the other Stark children. So because Jon grew up this way, he has a lot of that something special that you want in a leader. He knows what it's like to be the common person. He grew up his entire life thinking that he was a bastard, even though he's not, but he knows what it's like to be mistreated and have society deal you a somewhat crappy hand. Now, I know that there are a lot of characters and a lot of other people in Westeros that have had it way worse than Jon Snow, but in a world where inheritance and titles and, bloodlines are everything, Jon Snow grew up almost having that grasp of being, of an important house, but not quite. He was born into House Stark, just not a member of Ned Stark's actual children through a legitimate marriage. And because of this, in the world and the society that he lives in, he's had it really hard. That's what she said. And another thing that's awesome about his character is that instead of trying to prove himself on the battlefield and trying to become, somewhat of an operating member of House Stark, like a lot of his other brothers and sisters are doing in those moments, like, Sansa wants to go off and marry Joffrey, Robb is ready to take Ned's place, Bran is just running all over the place, falling from buildings and whatnot. All of the other Starks are going into their role and trying to become their own people, and Jon Snow decides to head to the wall, which is in this day and age, in this time period in Westeros, that's a punishment. The only people that get sent there are thieves, robbers, murderers, and rapists. So Jon Snow chooses this, almost as if he's going to further his punishment by his own hands. Now, yes, one could definitely argue that Jon knew that he would never be able to get any sort of inheritance from House Stark because he had so many siblings, and it would go to all of them first before it came to him, but that's not who he is as a person. We quickly find out that once Jon Snow gets to the wall, he's mistreated, and Alliser Thorne says that he's like a high noble-born and starts talking a lot of smack to him. Does Jon call him out and have his ass court-martialed and have, some Stark soldiers come up there and rough him up? No, he does none of that. He proves himself. He starts off from the bottom, and now he's here. So my point in all that was trying to show you guys that Jon Snow, all of his royalty and all of his good deeds aside, he's still a good person. He's always been a good person. You could thank Ned Stark for that because Ned is the one who raised him, but Jon Snow is a good dude. I mean, just think about it. He's met with Cersei, he's met with the Night King, he's met with Mance Rayder of the North, he's met with Ned, who before this time period in Game of Thrones, Ned was a big deal back in his day. He's also met Robert Baratheon, and then you can even argue that he's met his father, Rhaegar, because, well, boat sex with Lyanna, which was, I guess, in a Tower of Joy, so Tower Sex 1.0, bringing up with Jon, but he's done so many great things. With all of these meetings that Jon Snow's had, he's gained a little bit from each one of them, and I think each one of these leaders, if you take them down, take all of their negative crap away from them and you boil them down to just their good points, Jon Snow's taken a little bit and learned a little bit from each of them. I think 3 of the most significant meetings that he had was the first one being with Jon Snow and Stannis. And these are not in the order that he met them with. These are just, in my mind, the order that they hold the most significance with Jon Snow. The first one being with Stannis Baratheon. Stannis was one of the first rightful heirs to the Iron Throne that Jon Snow officially meets, and he shows up in one of Jon Snow's most in-need moments. Like, Jon, if everything had have gone well, he could have been killed right then and there in Mance Rayder's camp. You remember, Jon went solo dolo to go and meet with Mance Rayder to try to talk him down from continuing to attack the wall. Jon Snow didn't want to lose more of his brothers in black, so he took it upon himself to go out and meet with Mance. And right when he did that, this is when Stannis shows up. And Jon actually spends a significant time with Stannis at the wall, learning from him. The second leader who met with Jon that I think had the most significance, or some of the most significance with him, was Mance Rayder. Remember, he spent time with Mance north of the Wall, and one thing he took away from Stannis was how to be a good leader and a true king and do what's best for the nation. Sometimes you have to let your petty squabbles and your feelings about certain situations aside, and you have to do what's best for the kingdom. Sometimes you don't want to get what's handed to you, but you still have to play the hand that you're dealt. And one thing that he learns from Mance is how to bring people together. Mance Rayder brought so many different tribes of free folks together that no one had even heard of. There were several kings that had done this before Mance, but Mance was one of the most successful, seeing as how Mance wasn't even a free folk himself. He came from the south. He's from Westeros. So Mance was able to go north and unite all of these different people. And that's honestly, I think I should have made this number one now that I'm discussing this with you guys, but this is what Jon Snow practices to this very day, is he is bringing together people who you would never think would come together. Jon has just made and consummated a union with Daenerys Targaryen, one of the greatest allies the Starks have ever had. Also, he may not even realize it, but if Jaime Lannister is successful in bringing parts of the Lannister army to come and join the North, he's also united House Lannister and House Stark, pseudo, through the means of, well, we have no other choice, let's fight this war together. The third and final meeting that I think Jon Snow has, held a lot of weight with him was the meeting with the Night King. Now, Jon Snow has met the Night King in Hardhome for the first time, and honestly, in those moments, I think that's when the Night King put a giant target on Jon Snow's head. He fights with the White Walker, kills him, and then makes eye contact and sees the Night King raise all of these individuals from the dead. This has had even more of an impact on him than that meeting with Stannis. So I guess I should have put all of these different meetings in different orders. But anyway, Jon Snow, ever since then, has been fighting the greater fight to ultimately try to save all of Westeros. The Night King has put Jon Snow on his path to save the world. We all have to remember that when Jon Snow died, he saw nothing. There was nothing there for him. So when he comes back, he almost has nothing else to live for. It's the meeting or the letter that he gets that makes him want to go fight and save his house. But then ultimately, the first thing he does, instead of trying to make House Stark a great house in the north, is he worries about fighting the Night King. So if it wasn't for the Night King, he wouldn't have honestly put that fire back in him. Now, yes, you can thank Sansa for making him want to go and save Winterfell, but what does he ultimately do after that? The first thing he thinks of is we need to fight the Long Night, which is the real fight, the only one that matters. Jon Snow has a great way of letting everyone know that we're all just people, no matter where you come from, whatever your background is if we have a common objective and we want to live and do what it is we do, we need to work together and solve and fight this Night King. Now, I've been trying to push this off for a long time, but we're getting towards the end of this video here, and I think I need to kind of sew in a few loose ties for this video. Now, hear me out. Let's just say that even though Daenerys is an amazing conqueror, she brings a bunch of people together, arguably more so than Jon Snow did over in Essos, and then she comes to Westeros and she doesn't want to use fire and blood. She wants to try to talk her way through it, but she knows damn well that that's not going to work, and she has to do what she has to do to try to bring Westeros together, and ultimately she would make a really good leader. She's proven herself to listen to the people. She wants to do what's best for everyone, not just what's best for her house. So yes, Daenerys would make an amazing leader, but for this video, we have to pretend that Jon Snow is going to be the leader. So let's just say Daenerys is off safe somewhere away from the battle because Jon refuses to have the mother of his children and his future wife somewhere in harm's danger. Now, he does know that she has dragons, but he wants to try to convince Daenerys to have Drogon stay with her and protect her, and then he will go off and fight the war, similar to what his father, Rhaegar Targaryen, did. Now, since we're at that moment, let's go ahead and talk about it. Jon Snow is literally the Song of Ice and Fire. His father, Rhaegar, was known as the Last Dragon. His mother, Lyanna, was a Blue Winter Rose. She was ice. She was of House Stark. So Jon Snow is literally who the novels are named after, A Song of Ice and Fire. So not only is Jon Snow the literally main person who our character is named after, but he arguably has the strongest claim to the Iron Throne simply for the fact that Rhaegar was next in line after King Mad Aerys II died. So after Rhaegar died, Jon Snow, his only living son, would be there to take the place. So Jon Snow has the strongest claim, is the product of A Song of Ice and Fire, and arguably is Lightbringer. Oh, did I not mention that? I thought I have mentioned it before, but one of my favorite theories in regards to, this whole Nissa, who's the last hero, and who is Azor Ahai prophecy, is the fact that Lightbringer may not actually be a flaming sword, but maybe a physical representation of something similar to that instead, that either being a person or dragons themselves. So in that little theory, a lot of people think that Lyanna is Nissa, and Rhaegar himself was Azor Ahai. And the fact that he impregnated Lyanna with Jon Snow, this is what ultimately caused Lyanna's death. So this would be very similar to Azor Ahai stabbing his wife Nissa with a sword in order to ignite its flame. This would be a very similar way to that. So when Rhaegar impregnated Lyanna, this was symbolism for him stabbing her through the heart with a sword, because she ultimately ends up dying because of this pregnancy, and this brings Jon Snow as Lightbringer. It would make sense as why Jon Snow brought everyone together and is a representation of light throughout this long night. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video. Also, before I forget, if you guys want me to start covering more of these recent spoilers that have been coming up, let me know down in the comment section and I'll do a video just for those. I kind of want to keep those out of the theory videos just for anyone who doesn't want to know any spoilers. But the like goal for this video will be 422. If you could please slap a like on this. If you would like to be entered into my contest to win this $100 Amazon gift card, all you have to do to enter that contest is like this video, comment down below, make sure you're subscribed, turn your notifications on, and then check out the gleam.io link pinned to the top comment of this video, as well as in the description to go and enter all the different bonus ways. I want to give a super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews, especially Terry. Without all of you guys, these videos would not be possible, and if anyone watching would like to show your support to Sir Hunts Reviews, all you can do is check out the link right up here, or check out the link down below in the description, and that will take you to my Patreon page. I want to thank you all again so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunts Reviews. I forgot to put one of these little Easter eggs in the last video, so if you're listening to this right now, my favorite color is red, and I like pineapples.